Hi, I'm Tanya Schreuder, Joint Managing Director of Visium South Africa. You would have met my business partner a couple of chapters prior. And today I'm going to take you through chapter 4, which looks at the concepts of media planning and strategy. So you'll, by the end of this chapter, reading it thoroughly, you'll be able to distinguish between a macro and micro media decision and how to begin your approach. Make a distinction between the 4 key factors in the media square that will drive your thought process, a very, very important part of the chapter. You must be able to identify between cover and reach, in case your client ever asks you that question. Understand how reach builds and how to calculate reach and frequency. Understand the meaning of effective reach. Distinguish between a number of different variables in frequency, average frequency, frequency distribution, effective frequency, and what these mean to a plan. Who knew there were so many different definitions for frequency? The concept of duplication, once again, a wonderful way, a wonderful analogy when you are looking at selecting various channels for your clients. If you understand duplication, it can be a very, very powerful tool. Calculating cost efficiency of audience delivery for a media campaign, GRPs for your schedules, and understand what an index is. Once again, just like duplication, an index is another very simple concept, but when explained to a client, it opens wonderful doors for them. Macro and micro, we spoke about logic, macro being broad, micro being small. So macro really is the decision between your intermedia. So that's the beginning of your strategy, where you're informing clients whether you're doing TV, radio, print, or out of home. Micro naturally progresses from there, and that's within your various channels, what radio stations you're selecting, what print titles you're selecting. As you can see on this slide, there's a big blue block which has been put there so that you can almost do a test your knowledge. On the left-hand side, you have communication tasks. This is derived from the brief. It's obviously very important that you get a very good brief from your clients. And on the right-hand side, it's the channel role. So look at the various communication tasks like engagement, credibility, and decide what channels or what the channel role would be under that blue block. In terms of setting media objectives, the slide that you have in front of you is really the perfect world of media planning. You have enough money to build each of those quadrants equally. So it's reach, frequency, time, and impact. So as we say, in a perfect world, you will actually maximize each of those when putting together a media plan. What this section will teach you or guide you on is, the unfortunate thing is we don't live in a perfect world and we don't always have enough money. So we would very likely have to highlight possibly 2 of those, either cover and time or frequency and impact. Looking at the third element of the square, impact, one of the things I'd like to highlight here is, and many times people get confused, it isn't about saying that your media plan is impactful. Impact requires that you take a large portion of your budget against impact as an objective, and it really refers to size. So if you're doing building wraps, if you're doing cover mounts or wrapping a newspaper, impact means that you're spending a lot more money on bigger sizes and they cost more. So it's size, duration, as an example, 30 versus 60 or a 90-second commercial. Then we've added in a couple of examples of media plans. So media plan number 1, you'll see what it looks like, and as we said, this is the imperfect world of media. So here, cover and time have been highlighted, and this slide unpacks why cover and time have been highlighted. So we've used magazines as an answer to the brief. And what you can see there in terms of television, that in this case, the media plan wasn't television, it was magazines. But in this case, magazines actually had a wonderful reach of our target market. So we spent more money in terms of maximizing reach. And time, on the given budget, the campaign had to be short. It was over 3 months, and magazines take longer to build reach than television. Impact, it wasn't too expensive, so we weren't focusing on that. It was purely full page, full colors. And frequency, once again, a simple commercial or a simple ad, and a consumer could see the ad once and get the overall message. So when we're looking at reach building, for example, over 3 weeks, you'll see week 1 being the blue bar, week 2 the red, and week 3 the green bar. you'll very quickly see that at some point your reach flattens out, and you will no longer deliver reach, but you'll deliver more frequency. So if you have the information available to you, it's a wonderful tool to utilize, because often clients will say, well, let's spend another R1,000,000, and you'll say, well, look, even if we're spending another R1,000,000, we're only gaining another 2% reach points, which wouldn't be really beneficial unless you have a very complex communication message and your objective is around frequency. Looking at reach calculation, when clients ask how we actually calculate reach, we often don't, because we have software that does that. But it's very good to understand the principles. As I said, this chapter is going back to the basic principles, and you need to understand it because very often clients do ask the questions. Looking at the term of cumulative reach, this is the degree to which each successive exposure to the medium reaches a certain proportion of unique readers, viewers, or listeners. So highlighting, I think, 2 or 3 slides prior, when we looked at the point of diminishing returns, a very similar definition. It's cumulative reach, and at some point you're no longer reaching people and you're building frequency. Illustrating cumulative reach, once again, a lovely exercise that really, really brings it to life. So in the chart in front of you, you have a 4-week campaign, and you have a hypothetical 10 viewers or 10 potential viewers. So in week 1, you can see that 3 viewers actually saw the commercial. So your weekly reach would be 30%, which is 3 out of 10. So that equates to 30%. Your unique reach is obviously 30% because only 3 people have seen it. Your cumulative reach remains at 30%. However, once you get to week number 2, you'll see that duplication starts coming in, and because we're building cumulative reach, you can't count the same person twice. So we now have a weekly reach, well, we have a weekly reach of 40%, but our unique reach is only 20% because only 2 unique new viewers or readers saw the ad. And so it goes to week 3 and week 4, and each week taking out the duplication and looking at unique or cumulative reach. What does 1+ reach mean? Here's another term on reach. If you read this, it really implies that all consumers have seen the ad. So 1+ is really that first time that people see the ad. Effective reach is exactly that. It's defined as the number of people within your target market who are exposed to the advertiser's message sufficient time. So it implies that your reach has to be effective and efficient. This is a chart that we added to the chapter, which is probably from 20 years ago. So if you're new in media and you're dealing with a frequency dilemma, you can use this as a very, very nice guidance. So on the left-hand side, you have low frequency factors. On the right-hand side, high frequency factors. We talk about logic throughout this chapter. Very obviously, if the product is established and well-known, it needs low frequency, versus a product, for example, that is new, or in a very competitive and cluttered environment where you'd obviously need higher frequency. Frequency distribution, we spoke about that reach at 1+. Here you can see how frequency distribution works, and how and really this is built into your planning software tools. If you look at reach at 1+, it reads that 80% of your audience saw the ad at least once. At 2+, 65. So what frequency distribution means is the higher your frequency level goes, the lower your reach is. So you're reaching less people more effectively, as the term duplication is it really is the degree of overlap between consumers of specific media types. So very often when you're doing a media plan and you have 2 magazines that are relatively similar, where we know we'd have high duplication, or we have 2 television channels or 2 radio channels, as soon as we have a high duplication, we know that our reach is going to be less, but our frequency will be higher. So if your objectives are reach-based, you would try and look for channels that don't offer high duplication. Cost efficiency. Clients always want to know that your schedules are cost efficient. So when adding all the other elements, very often cost efficiency may help you define whether you would select a title or a channel or a program. So when you understand the media square and what your objectives are, go back to that, because that will obviously help you in answering if the cost efficiency is good or bad. But cost efficiency for media schedule refers to the relative balance of effectively meeting reach and frequency goals at the lowest cost. Haven't met a client yet that doesn't want cost efficiency. So cost efficiency, particularly when looking at print titles, comes in the form of cost per thousand. And it really is worked out when you take your full page, full color rate, and you divide it by number of readers. So what this chart shows is a very nice way, or a blow by blow, in terms of what the overall result of a cost per thousand exercise would look like. But what's very important when calculating cost per thousand is that you don't take you don't divide the cost by the full amount of readership or circulation, but these amounts are reduced to units and thousands. And then you'll very, very quickly see when you start looking at total readership which one is more cost effective. So as an example, Living and Loving is sitting at 45 Rand. It definitely is the cheapest buy. You can take it further and look at your specific readers within your target market, and there you can see we've done an exercise to take it even further. As you move from overall readership to your specific target market, your cost per thousand very often goes up. Gross rating points, or GRPs, we do like our abbreviations in media, but your gross rating points really they mean when you calculate total reach average frequency, and the GRPs are part of planning that campaign. How do you calculate GRPs? Reach times frequency gives you your GRPs. For example, you have 70% reach and 3.5 opportunities to see, which is your frequency. That gives you total ratings or gross rating points of 245. And if you go back to school, mathematics and algebra, as you start to flick things around and do your equations, you can see variations where reach is GRPs divided by frequency, or frequency is GRPs divided by reach. So an index is a form of percentage that relates numbers to a base. So the base is 100. Anything below 100 is below the average. Anything above indexes really, really well, and it demonstrates an above average or below average. What you want in media is obviously channels or titles or stations that deliver on high index. In this graph, you can see we've actually averaged index at 400 because most these channels are above 100, so against the specific target market. And what you can see with the lines, very, very easily, they may not have very high reach numbers, but they index wonderfully. So the propensity of that audience to be consuming that channel specifically is very, very high, and what it gives you on your media schedule is very low wastage. So index, when combined with reach, is a very, very powerful tool. Factors to note on index, just in closing, is a high index does not necessarily mean a high reach, which I think we've spoken about, and it's a wonderful way to get niche titles on board. Environment, actually most of these terms don't take environment into account. And it's up to you to still ensure that your client's ad is in the right environment. So even though something is indexing really well or really poorly, your environment could be really good, or you could have a wonderful sponsorship and be getting great value. So you don't always just pick on index in this case. And cost. A channel with a high index or affinity will not necessarily make sense from a cost efficiency perspective. Unfortunately, very often niche titles cost more, but what you are saying is that everyone who's reading that home decor or that IT magazine is in your marketplace, so you are offering very, very low wastage to your client's media schedule. Thank you for joining me today in conjunction with the Dentsu Aegis Training Academy.